My favorite thing is sangers. It's like they're sad bangers. Yeah. And they just like, you're dancing and you're like, this is kind of sad, but I just can't stop dancing.
You were the guitarist for Shania Twain's tour, which is crazy. What was that experience like?
I've never been a sideman in somebody's band before, but when your childhood hero calls you and asks you, it's like, how can I say no to the queen?
Yeah, of course.
I wrote a song called Fence Sitter about if I want to be a mother or not.
I'm like getting emotional.
Oh.
It's something that I've also wrestled with like so much.
These are like questions I wrestle with deeply in my soul, and hoping so that if I've wrestled with this question, maybe other people have wrestled with the same question.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Spout Podcast. I'm your host, Tamara Dia, and today I am joined by Lindsay Ell. Welcome.
Hey.
How you doing? You say you just got here from Nashville, so welcome back to LA. You've been here many times. How's everything going right now?
Awesome. I'm so excited to be releasing new music. You know, it's sort of, this is a weird time we're in right now where I feel like for sure as an artist, you kind of always need to be releasing music.
Sure, yeah.
I feel like when I was just growing up in the industry, it was like, okay, you'd make an album or you'd like release a song and then you'd go tour a bunch. And then like you'd have an album year and then a tour year and then an album year and then a tour year. But right now I feel like we're in this time where you just always need new things all the time, kind of regardless of who you are. And so I think that there's not like an on year and an off year. I mean, some artists are smart enough to just make that a thing, but
like force breaks.
Yeah, to force breaks, and I probably should listen to that. But right now, I feel like I've just been in this release mode, which has been super exciting, and thankfully, I get to release a lot of new music. So.
Yeah, and exciting for your fans. I mean, you're right. It's such an interesting music dynamic these days. I mean, do you think that's because of social media that people are expecting the output so much quicker now?
For sure. And I love getting to release more music. Don't get me wrong. Like as a songwriter, it's such a weird thing to write like hundreds and hundreds of songs for an album and then previously only get to release 12 of those songs. And so now I guess you're seeing, you know, albums get much longer and having artists like release single, and then maybe that will trickle out into an album or maybe a bunch of singles and then an album. And so I think it's cool. And at the same time, I think it's such a weird time in the world where we're all of our attentions, I'll speak for myself, like my attention is just spread like left, right. And it's like, what am I actually taking in?
Yeah.
And so I try to be more cognizant of that in my life. And it's interesting to also, you know, I'm sure you live this too, like have a business that's very tied to social media. And so as much as you try to have healthy relationships with these things, it's also part of my love of being an artist and a songwriter. And so it's a very like interesting dichotomy of a place to be.
I think it's so fascinating that there's, you know, artists are on different sides of this spectrum. Like we have someone like Sabrina Carpenter who with back-to-back years dropped 2 big albums. And when people asked her about it and they were like, you just dropped an album. And she was like, I have this stuff that I want to put out there. Like I'm not putting myself on a timeline. Yeah. And then on the other side, Chappell Roan recently came out and was like, it takes me 5 years to drop an album. Like stop asking me for another album.
Totally.
So it's interesting.
No, and I love it. I think that any artist should just lean into their artistry. I mean, even Taylor Swift, like she had a huge album and then she has another huge album. And it's so cool to be able to consume so much music. And then I really respect artists that are like, no. I need to go away and get inspired and write this next album and then I'll share it to the world. Yeah. And if I were to pick which side of the fence I'm on, full pun intended, I'm probably on the Chappell Roan side of the fence of like, well, because I released my first album in 2017 and then it took me until 2020 until release my next album. And I've had a couple EPs, but I'm just working on my next full length. And so in between my last full length to this full length, it'll be 5 years, which is wild. Yeah. It's wild to me, but 5 years goes by like this.
Truly, yes.
And when you're touring a lot, it's like, I don't know how some artists do it.
Yeah.
For me, I kind of have like road brain and I have writing studio brain. And it's sometimes hard to combine those two.
Yeah. Well, speaking of fences, you have Fence that are coming out October 24th.
Let's talk about all the fences.
Yeah. Okay. So first off, why that title?
I wrote a song called Fence Sitter about if I want to be a mother or not. And it has been a question that has been so loud in my brain recently. I remember asking myself that question when I was a little girl and not knowing the answer to it. And then when I was in my 20s, that question got a little bit louder. And then when I turned 30, that question was so blaringly loud. And now I'm in my mid-30s and I'm like, I still don't know. Like, I have no idea. And so we wrote the song about it. As a songwriter, how I really figure out any question I have in my life is I first write a song about it. And then maybe I bring it to my therapist. But I write the song first. And it was just such a special song that it felt really central and that we should call the EP about it. But yeah, I feel like the decision to be a parent is something I respect so much and so deeply. And I don't take it lightly. And yet I have this job that requires me to travel more than, a normal 9-to-5 job where it's a little bit different to schedule around. And yet I have so many female artist friends who have had babies and travel all over and make it look so easy. And I don't know how they do it. And so I see both sides of the fence. I don't want to have regret of never knowing that kind of love or never knowing what it feels like to have a family. And yet I've just, started this new era of my career and this new chapter. And in a lot of ways, I feel like I'm getting to start over again in like a beautiful sense. And I have so much road to run. I have so much ground ahead of me, and the fact of like growing a family right now, I just don't know if it's the right time. And yet, as women, we have biological clocks that like make it not possible for us to like hem and haw about this forever. And so, yeah, it's just a song that I wrote so honestly, just about trying to figure that out and listening to all sides of the story and really knowing that the only thing you can come back to is like what's inside of you.
'Cause I'm a daughter, a sister, a wide-eyed fence sitter. If I'm happy with the things I have, then why do I still have to ask if I'm ready, worthy? If I go home early, I don't want to end up looking back and wish I had a life like that. If it's one thing or the other, do I wanna be a mother?
I'm like getting emotional.
Oh,
because it is something obviously that we all, sorry, I'm like
No,
not expecting
please,
an emotional.
you're
I'm
so
so sorry.
sweet.
It's something that we all wrestle with as women, and like it's such an important biological question that every woman goes through.
Yeah.
And as a woman in entertainment, as a woman that's had so much focus on her career, like it's something that I've also wrestled with like so much. I would also say that the clock has pushed for us.
For sure.
Because like one of my girlfriends is 42 and just had the most beautiful, healthy, bouncing baby boy.
Same.
So it's like, I think that those stories are more prevalent now than they were, 10, 15 years ago. So I still have hope, that like,
Girl, I have so much hope for you.
Yeah, thanks.
I see those beautiful tears and I'm like, you got this.
Yeah. So it's like, it's just so relatable. And and I can't really recall another artist really tackling that topic truly, like off the top of my head. So it's just like a breath of fresh air. Like,
Thank you.
Like, it's important.
I think it's important to talk about. I think it's really important for a lot of women specifically to talk about, just because we do have this finite time. And like you said, it shouldn't be career versus family, but in a lot of chapters of your life, it does feel that black and white in a lot of ways. And so I think it's really important to like normalize the topic and to hear from a lot of different people of like, this is what I did, this is what I feel, this is what I really wanted, and this is what ended up happening. And like, I think the more stories that you're able to hear, the clearer you are to like decipher what feels right, like in this moment, and then what maybe feels right. And you can change your mind every day, you know?
Yeah. And we have science advancements that also
100%
assist
for sure
in that as well.
Yeah.
Well, the title track is Fence Sitter, but tell me about the rest of the album. What can fans expect?
This EP, I just wrote a lot more vulnerably than I have on a lot of projects. I feel like this time in my life right now, I'm not trying to make music that is for the purpose of like getting a number one on the radio. I mean, of course, that's always something that an artist dreams to have and is like so special that every time you get to ring that bell. But I think when I first moved to Nashville, I think my brain got so focused on like achieving that I started to create from that place. And I think that's a dangerous spot to be when you start making art with your eyes on commercial things compared to making art for just the sake of it being art. And I also know that you can make art in this like whimsical land, and that's also probably not a great place to live in 100%. And ideally you want to like find the world where those two places meet. But I think I just got so deeply focused to like chasing, okay, I gotta get a number one on the radio. I got to add this and this and this, and sonically my records have to sound like this in order to be accepted. And over the past few years, I just really wanted to create from a place that made me feel expansive and made me feel excited to share my music and to release songs. And so that has been so cool and so exciting over these past few years. And I feel like I'm finally getting to walk into a studio and literally pick up any instrument that I want to and see what it'll sound like and be like, yeah, I want to create an EP that leans in like a 1975 direction and sonically has, you know, cool synths in it. And I just don't want to have to create in like a very small box and know that those are the only instruments I have to play with. And so it's felt so good to sort of widen those creativity rules or kind of throw those rules out the window and just be like, let's just make music that feels real. And from a songwriting perspective, I feel like I've really focused on that too, of again, not creating music for the intention of its outcome, but creating music just because these are like questions I wrestle with deeply in my soul, and hoping so that if I've wrestled with this question, maybe other people have wrestled with the same question. And so on this EP, you know, of course I talk about the amazing feeling of finding love and how exciting that is, and the difficulty of losing love and how heartbreaking and world-changing that is. But I also talk about topics about wanting to be a parent or not. Or I wrote a song called Magic about the ups and downs of having a dream and like really trying to pursue something that you've been working towards and building towards, and how frustrating it can be in the pursuit of that, but how like when you like dig really deeply within yourself, you like can find this motivation in your own belief that feels so magical in a way. And I think that it's just a really important place that like anybody can connect to within themselves. And it's like, I still believe that I can do this thing. I don't know how, I don't know when, I do know what. And that's sometimes all you need to know.
Truly.
And you like keep picking up your foot one after the other and keep sacrificing all of these other parts of your life, and yet like continuing of that like belief in yourself. I just think is really special and really beautiful.
If you ask me, I'm not jaded, but I'm 2 seconds from breaking. I'd give it all up to get back to when I didn't think about what would happen next. I'd give it all up to get it back again. I still believe in magic. I still believe in magic.
That's a song called Magic on the EP. And then I also wrote a song, Good Guy,
Yes.
about Something that this is a song I've been waiting to write for a very, very long time. And sometimes I think in our life we're put in situations where we feel like we can't fully tell our side of the story for whatever reason. And I have just gotten to the point where I wanted to start to share my side of the story with something that happened to me years ago. And I feel like when we can step into those places, we get to claim our power back and we get to access a level of confidence that maybe we haven't been able to ever feel before or haven't seen for a while. And it's been really, really fun to see fans react to Good Guy. And
another relatable track for sure.
And, I always love writing like sad songs that make you dance.
Yeah, the dichotomy of it's really nice.
Yeah.
What inspired Good Guy?
Gosh, I mean, a relationship that I was in that got complicated, as a lot of relationships
Surely they do.
can do sometimes. And, I will always respect that there's two sides of the story. And for a lot of people, they got to hear his side of the story. And for a while, I never got to tell mine because I was told I shouldn't. And although I will always, respect being surrounded by people who are just trying to help you, I feel like there are times in your life where you just really need to claim who you are and claim what you've lived and share your stories. I feel like that's the one thing that connects us in this life, is being storytellers. And it's like specificity is actually the most relatable thing. Like the more specific you get about what you've been through, the more I feel I can actually relate to it compared to, in songwriting, we talk about this in the writing room all the time. Like it's great to write this universal topic that a lot of people can listen to a song and be like, oh yeah, I know what that feels like. But I feel like the more specific details you add into something is actually what makes it more relatable because it's like you can picture it better. And so yeah, I think telling our stories is so important.
Yeah.
And I'm just
relatable.
Yeah. I'm just trying to continue to tell mine.
Yeah, and Good Guy's it's a good little bop too.
Thank
I was
you.
listening to it on the way here. I was like, oh, this is like a bop. Like
my favorite thing is sangers. It's like they're sad bangers. Yeah. And they just like you're dancing and you're like, this is kind of sad, but I just can't stop dancing.
I kind of like that too though. It's like I should feel this way, but I feel this way.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
If someone is just discovering your music, what track on the new album do you think best represents you as an artist now?
Ooh, I love this question. Probably Good Guy. For a long time, when I first got to Nashville, I wanted to make a record that sounded like a female John Mayer. And then I got offered a country record deal and I was like, okay, it's the same thing, kind of. Like if Sheryl Crow were to come out today, she'd be country maybe. And it took me a decade of getting to tour on amazing tours and getting to zigzag around the world and getting to release a lot of awesome songs and celebrate a few number ones on country radio to figure out that and even being on radio tours and hearing like program directors, like many program directors come up to me and be like, you're so cool, but you're not country. And I would always be like, yeah, I know, but here I am. And I just always felt like the black sheep kind of like hanging out with all these people who were like, you don't really fit in, but she's cool enough, so we'll let her stay. And sometimes even on stage, I would be on stage being like playing my Corey Wong guitar licks and playing all of these things and walking out on stage and being like, we should love everybody. And then sometimes like all these people in the front row would be like crossing their arms and we're like, who let her in? And why doesn't she fit anybody else on the bill? But again, I think I've just been playing shows ever since I was a little girl. And so I just learned how to win over an audience. And like turn up my amp and just like play cool guitar things. And then all of a sudden a crowd would be like, oh, okay, she's cool. And so I think it took me a while to notice that I wasn't necessarily aligned. And especially when you have success is such a confusing thing sometimes, because it can make you feel like you're in the exact place that you should be. And then sometimes behind all of like the lights and cameras and flashy things, you aren't.
Yeah.
You aren't necessarily where you're supposed to be, or you aren't saying the things that you really want to be saying. And so it took me a few years to really come to terms with that and look at myself in the mirror and be like, wait a minute, I want to be making like a 1975 record.
Yeah.
And why am I scared to do that? And so the past few years have been terrifying, and I had to walk into a lot of big offices and be like, I love you all so much, but I need you to let me go. And I slated a lot of my team, and I feel like I had to start again in a lot of ways. But as an artist, as a songwriter, as a maker of art, I feel so refreshed and so renewed, and feel like I can create from a space that doesn't have boundaries. And a lot of those boundaries I did put on myself. It's not like people were necessarily putting them on me, but it's just so interesting when you get caught in a space where you think you need to be this thing.
Right.
And then you're like so deeply wound in that universe that it's hard to spin out of it.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I'm finally in a place where I can make music that I love and that excites me. And so if I were to describe my music, it would be a lot different than, when I first moved to Nashville. And now I'd say it's pop rock music with a little indie flair and a lot of muso guitar licks.
I always find this so interesting because I've been hearing this a lot lately of artists that kind of came into the industry and kind of pushed into a certain genre, but their innate artistry leaned in a different way. I recently interviewed Daughtry.
Yeah.
And so when Daughtry first came out, obviously they kind of pushed him into this like more pop rock era. And his last couple albums have been very hard rock.
Totally.
And so when we were having this conversation, he was basically kind of saying the same thing, like, oh, well, the label was saying like, this is the kind of album you have to give us. And he's like, all right, well, I thought that's what I was supposed to do. But as he moved through his career, he was like, this doesn't feel right. So, and this isn't an uncommon tale,
It isn't. And yet whenever I hear stories like that, I'm like, hell yeah, Daughtry. Like, it takes a lot of courage to, one, realize that, like, have awareness in it, and then take the steps to being like, no, this is the music I want to make.
Yep.
And I think it happens a lot because, when you're growing up, and if you get signed, if you're fortunate enough to get it signed at a young age, at least for me, my eyes were so wide.
Sure.
And I was like, I want to be on the road playing shows, like whatever will get me on the road playing shows. That's my favorite place to be in the world.
Yeah. Like,
sign me up. And so you just say yes a lot without asking questions. And I think that's a beautiful thing to do when you're young, because you get to experience a lot of things and go see a lot of things and work with a lot of people that maybe you wouldn't have if you hadn't said yes. But I think what I lost sight of is like that inner compass within me that was like, no. You actually want to make a record that sounds like this. And you actually don't want to add a steel guitar on it. You want to add this like cool, weird synth on it. And those were the spaces where I think I compromised for a few years, like too long, of which now I feel I'm back in the sweet spot.
Nice. I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
That's a hard fight, I'm sure, to like find your spot. So
it's a hard fight, but a good fight.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes maybe Daughtry felt this way too, but you get to the point where you're like, I can't not do it.
Right.
Like, I just can't not be who I am, and I can't not make music that feels good and like seated in my being. And so we'll see what happens, but this is where I'm going.
I've seen you play guitar. You're definitely more synth rock, like, for sure.
Thank you.
I'm speaking of guitar. You are the guitarist for Shania Twain's tour,
Yeah.
which is crazy. What was that experience like?
So wild. We opened for her in 23, and then at the beginning of 2024, she called and was like, would you be my lead guitar player? And I'm like, absolutely. I've never been a sideman in somebody's band before, but when your childhood hero calls you and asks you, it's like, how can I say no to the queen?
Yeah, of course.
And yeah, the past year and a half has just been so wild and full of experiences that I never thought I would have. It's kind of crazy to get to not only meet your childhood hero, but to get to work with them and learn from them and understand what has made them, you know? And, you know, being able to play Glastonbury in front of 220,000 people playing the
What is that like?
Man, I Feel Like a Woman solo,
Oh
or
my
like Hyde
gosh.
Park, or 200,000 people at Festival d'Été. Like, I've got to tour the world with my childhood hero and sing some songs. Like, I remember those first few songs that I fell in love with Shania with, like No One Needs to Know, where she's like playing her guitar on like the white porch of this house, like for the original Twisters movie. And I remember like watching that music video when I was a little girl, being like, I want to be her. And I still like got emotional some nights on stage playing that song with her, because it was often in the acoustic set and I would be like 2 feet away from her and I would have to look at her sometimes and be like, is this really happening? Like, is this my life? Because that's the same woman who was on my TV, like in the music video.
Crazy.
And you know, like 27 years or whatever earlier. And I'm like, this is wild. Like, I guess I'm a good manifester.
I was going to say, I was literally about to say, you have the best manifesting
this is
skills of anyone I
weird
know.
and so cool. And she's just wonderful. Like, I know they say never meet your childhood heroes, but she's definitely the exception to that rule. She's so smart and she's so generous. And I feel like I've become a much better artist having been around her.
What's the biggest lesson you've learned from her?
Gosh, it's hard to choose just one, but I remember we were in rehearsals. We did a bunch of festivals this summer and we were in rehearsals for those. And watching her work with the band, it just so happened that day she was wearing this baseball cap that said Icon on it. And it was perfect because she walked into rehearsal and we were working on a few things in our harmony blend. And one of the band members was like playing this keys part. And she walked over to him and she's like, okay, you can't just play the keys part. You got to like play the keys part and you got to like sell the keys part. And it was so cool to watch her like empower him. And like she challenged everybody in the band in ways to like make us become the best versions of ourselves. And it was really amazing to watch, because sometimes as a band leader myself, I will just do everything myself, or if there's a part that needs to be covered, I'll just cover it, or I'm such an independent that way that I'm like, no, I'll just do it, I'll just make the graphic, I'll just do this. But watching Shania, she finds this way to like know everybody's superpower in the room and then like empower you to be like the best version so you can do your superpower the best you can. And it's so cool to watch. And I'm like, no wonder she's an icon. Like, no wonder she's wearing that hat, because she deserves it, because she's so good at it, at like lifting everybody up.
Another icon you actually mentioned earlier was John Mayer.
Yeah.
And I saw you posted a photo with him. Talk to me about that photo. What was going on there?
Gosh, I have looked up to John for so much of my career. I think that he is one of the most special artists that we have in music today. I think that the way he plays and the way he writes his songs and the way he performs is so unique, and it's such a like spectacle, honestly, for artists to watch and learn from. Like the fact that he is so artistic and cares about every aspect of his business, but even on stage, like he'll change a little melody and he'll play a guitar solo, but then he'll take it somewhere else. It's always very artistic and it's always very unique. Like every show like takes on its own world and its own life. And I feel so fortunate to have met John over the years, and he asked me to be a part of his Silver Sky SC commercial a few years ago, and I got to play alongside him and Ariel Posen and Solis and Eric Krasno and Isaiah Sharkey and all these incredible guitar players, and to be able to like talk with somebody who I've looked up to so much and realize like he is a human, like he's a human too, and like the most fucking coolest human, but he's just so smart. And and yet so grounded in like very like the musicality that man has in his body is like very, very deep in a cool way. And so it's amazing to get to know him.
That must be so sick as a guitar player to be playing guitar with John Mayer. I mean, he's
one of the most stressful things I've ever done. And that shoot, I wasn't supposed to be first that day. And of course, just the way things shook out, I was the first one who like had to stand in the middle of the room, and they were like, okay, Lindsay, start playing. And I'm like, okay. But I think those moments, you know, make you who you are when you really need to kind of show the world like
why you're standing there.
But also when you get to the spot where you're like, okay, these are my flaws and these are my scars and this is who I am, and you kind of gain up the courage to be that vulnerable. I think that is like where the magic happens, especially with playing guitar, you know. And it's cool even watching John play. I just saw him play at a festival outside of Nashville, and I see him still taking risks as a player, which I appreciate so much. I think that, you know, the learning never stops. When I used to read interviews about Buddy Guy or Celine Dion, like they still take lessons every single day.
Whoa.
They still took lessons every single day. And I'm like, if Celine Dion could take a singing lesson every single day, then the rest of us still have a lot to learn.
Sure, yeah.
And so there's always ways to improve, and there's always ways to get better. And I think you get there by leaning into your vulnerability of like your scars and flaws.
Speaking of vulnerability, great little segue. I was going through your Instagram and I noticed like there was some posts where you were just so vulnerable and so open, and like you're crying and you're sharing. And like for me, I didn't grow up having a safe space to be vulnerable. So like watching someone be able to do that, I think is such a superpower. Like, do you think that comes along with being a performer, or is that just innately you?
Thank you for saying that. I mean, I think growing up, a lot of us didn't feel safe to be that vulnerable. I think that even growing up, I thought what you were supposed to be is walk into a room and be perfect in a lot of ways, you know, and like your hair would be perfect and your clothing would be perfect, and everybody who you were with, everybody looked like they were perfectly happy and getting along. And I think that's just maybe what our parents' generation were taught, and so that's what they taught us naturally. Like it's nothing against them. I just think that's what was known from that time, and so I think the vulnerability has been learned from just getting sick of being perfect, or being perfect all the time, or having to look like things are perfect when I know that they're not. And you know, being in front of a camera when you're young, you also get used to that. You know, I can remember like several red carpets where I was going through whatever it would be, or sometimes I remember I just broken up with my boyfriend at the time, and we happened to both be on this red carpet, and he had walked up to me and like tapped me on the shoulder and been like, "Are you okay?" And I just started bawling. And then my publicist was right there, and she's like, "They're ready for you." And I was like, okay. And so I like wipe my tears off and like turn around, and I'm like, "Hi." And I think I've lived a lot of my life like that. Like just inside I'm screaming, and yet from the facade, like everything's smiling and happy. And I think I'm just sick of that. And I just know that's not real. And everybody's consuming so much on social media that I think people are sick of that too. I think it's 100%. Why you see things on TikTok be more raw and more vulnerable, and why I think people want to experience that and want to absorb that compared to somebody who like always lives a perfect life. And so I'm just trying to lean into that as a songwriter, and write about things that I've never written about before. And, you know, when I have questions in my life, I'm like, okay, maybe I'll ask that in music first and then see how that resurfaces. And there are so many haters on the internet, but there always will be. So you know what? Might as well just give them more content to Let them go.
My favorite saying is haters are just confused fans.
For sure. Yeah, totally. I mean, very confused. It would be funny, I guess, if a hater could ever become a fan.
They are secretly, because they're still clocking you.
I guess so. Yeah. Yeah. So true.
We're perfectly imperfect, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're also the host of Canada's Got Talent. I mean, that must be such a fun gig.
It's been so fun to be able to learn the world of TV, which is so different than music and so similar at the same time, as well as like give a spotlight for all these incredible humans to showcase what they do. It's felt so fun to be able to, like, of course, watch all of these like amazing singers and musicians, but acrobats and dancers and people who, like, the wonderful thing about the Got Talent brand is they give a stage to anybody and they let anybody showcase their talent. And so sometimes people will walk on stage and you don't even know what to call what they do, really, but they're just so amazing and they like make everybody laugh or make everybody drop their jaw and be like, what is happening right now? And so it's been so fun and such a cool thing to be a part of. Over the years, what's been the most standout moment for you? Probably the most standout moment, I remember my first season on Canada's Got Talent. I needed to choose my golden buzzer, and I was so stressed about it because I had never done it before, and I was like, what if I choose the wrong one? And they're like, you'll just know. And so this woman walked on stage, and her name was Jeannick Fournier, and she reminded me a lot of Susan Boyle, actually, because she had like this frizzy hair and she had the most incredible story. She is a nurse and helps a lot of kids with Down syndrome. She has kids with Down syndrome herself, and her story is just beautiful. Like, before she walks out on stage, you're like, this woman is an angel, is like an angel living on earth. And then she opens her mouth and she honestly sounds like Celine Dion. And I'm like, what? Like, how has this woman been like a nurse and has the heart of the size of the Titanic and the voice of Celine? Like, what is happening? And so I was like, I need to press my golden buzzer. And then so I press my golden buzzer and confetti starts falling and she starts crying. And then she just like so triumphantly spreads her arms and like was turning in circles and crying. And it was such a cool moment. And to be able to like give somebody that gift. Yeah. And she went on and won the whole season. Oh, nice. Like, she crushed it. Was really cool and really such an example of what shows like that can do. Like, you really can change someone's life by the press of a button. Well, you give back in more than just that way. You're also a big advocate for the Make You movement. Can you talk to me about that? Yeah, I started the Make You movement off of a song I wrote called Make You, about my journey with sexual assault when I was a little girl. And I had been working with an organization called Youth for Tomorrow. They work with a lot of kids aged 12 to 18 who have been victims of sex trafficking or sexual assault, or in homes with parents that just weren't fit to be parents. And I loved working with a lot of these kids because they were just so beautiful. They had so much light in their eyes, even though they've lived like these horrific stories. And I remember working on one of their campuses in West Virginia, and I was sitting down with a bunch of girls around this conference table, and we were all just talking about our stories. And there was this 12-year-old girl sitting next to me, and she was like, so my parents sold me to a sex trafficking company when I was little. And she just goes on and says like the most horrific things that I had ever heard, and yet was just so full of peace. And it like inspired me so much and made me feel so much love. And I was like, who am I to think that my story can't help somebody else or inspire somebody else in the way that she inspired me? And so from that moment forward, I was just like, okay, I need to write a song about this. And so I wrote Make You. And then through that, I started the Make You movement. So I would have my own fundraising arm to work with organizations like Youth for Tomorrow and all across the country and be able to raise money for women and children and disenfranchised youth.
And when you're broken past the point of what a broken heart can take, the cracks will heal, but you'll always feel the break. And that's what's gonna make you.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for doing that. So what does the rest of 2025 look like for you? Besides dropping the EP.
Yeah, dropping Fence Sitter, which I'm so excited that it'll be out in the world. And then
October 24th.
October 24th. I am already working on my full-length record for next year, which I'm super excited about. And then we're gearing up to go tour, which I'm so excited about. It'll be very early next year. So details on that to come soon. Or maybe depending on when you're watching this.
Maybe you'll find out. Yeah.
But I'm so excited to get back on the road. And I feel like over the past couple of years, just going through this whole revival of my mindset, my live show has been changing a lot in the best way. And I want to get back to the place of making music where with a band on stage, like your whole show can change on a dime. And I can really like follow the energy that's in the room compared to just having like a stop and go button and playing a show that seems like the same thing. It's like basically bringing a computer on stage and pressing play. And I just can't do that anymore. And so I'm so excited to play this new music live and to bring a band and have every show be its own special thing.
Nice. Well, we can't wait either. Congratulations on the EP. We can't wait to hear it. Thank you.
You.
Bye.